I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on that. I'm going to start one more time. I'm going to try and remove the beginning of it. Okay, so one more time.
Okay.
Okay, so today is December 7th, and I'm here with Shasta Martinuk, and I'm welcoming you to this interview on your life on Bowen as an artist, as a healing artist, and wondering if you'd like to say a little bit about yourself and how long you've been on Bowen, and what brought you to Bowen, maybe just a tiny bit about that, and what it's been like to be a creative person on Bowen.
Okay. Brian and I moved here in 1993, so we've been here just over 22 years. And we bought the property where we live now in 1989 and took a few years to build what we've built there, build our little house. And it's been quite a journey over these last 22 years, because when we moved here, I had left a career as a performing artist. I had been playing professionally in symphony orchestras and chamber groups and had given that up and was working in the corporate world. And so we were commuting to the city. When we first moved here, we joined the ranks of the Bowen commuters and commuted into the city every day for about a year and a half, and then I got laid off that job. And long story short, it took me a few years to find my way back to having music at the center of my life, which it had been pretty much my whole life up till, I would say, up until the late 1980s. And then I had a period of, where music took a very distant backseat to just making a living, building a house, getting settled here. And then one thing after another led us to this place where music is very firmly back at the center of both our lives.
Can you tell us a bit about that right now? Like, it's at the center of your life now. What are you involved in, and how did that happen, that all of a sudden you realize, or now you see yourself back it's in the center of your life again?
I wouldn't say it was all of a sudden. I would say that it was one step after another, after one thing led to another and led to another. And I got laid off my corporate job in 1995 in a major downsizing restructuring, and coincidentally, right around that time, someone that became a good friend, I didn't know her at the time, but she started a women's creativity and music weekend called Women Friends. And I started going to that. I just saw a flyer for it and felt drawn to it, and I started going to that. That was in the fall of 1995. And there was a delightful group of women djembe drummers from Seattle called Ladies Don't Drum. And I saw these women playing these drums. I'd never seen that kind of drumming before, and I was absolutely entranced by it. And I came home from that weekend and said to Brian, I want one of those drums. And so he got me one for my birthday the following year, and I've never looked back. That was an incredibly pivotal time for me, where I had given up the symphony world, but nothing had come along to replace that yet. I was singing in the community choir at the time. I'd always sung in choirs my whole life, but I never saw myself, I didn't see myself as being drawn to that kind of leadership particularly. I loved singing in the choir, and I still do. But I didn't see that as a path for myself. But as soon as I started drumming, something in me just caught on fire, and I just, within a year, Brian and I were leading a regular drum circle.
Right.
Barely knowing how to play the thing. Yeah.
Here on Bowen. So that was part of you reclaiming the musical arts.
Yeah. So Brian got me a drum for my birthday, then I got him one for Christmas. And so we started I think, what did we call it at the time? Island Groove.
Island Groove.
Yeah, and we had this drum circle, and we did the Bowfest parade, and we did community drum circles at Bowfest. We did community drum circles in our yurt. We did community drum circles anywhere anyone would have us, basically birthday parties and all manner of public and private events, and Yeah, so
And what are you involved in now in the community as far as music? What is your involvement?
well, right now we do a lot of singing. We do a weekly Monday night song circle. We don't call it a choir quite deliberately because there are so many choirs on Bowen, and choir is a word that has quite specific connotations to a lot of people. You know, choir, everyone knows what a choir is, and people have seen choirs perform in church choirs and this and that. And our song circle is something very different. We don't perform.
Right.
We sing for ourselves and each other
Right.
every Monday night, and we have done a couple of little flash mobs here and there, but we don't see ourselves as a performing group at all. In fact, that's one of our selling points is, you know, do you love to sing? Do you not want to perform? This is the group for you. You know, there's plenty of opportunities for people to perform if that's what they want. But I don't think there are that many opportunities for people to sing in a way that really is just for ourselves
For the
and
pleasure,
each other.
just simply the pleasure of
Just
singing.
for the joy of singing. So that's one of the things that we're doing regularly. And I also teach family music classes called Music Together, which is for adults, parents, grandparents, caregivers, and wee ones 4 and under, age 4 and under. And that's a very structured program. That's not my own creation. That's something that I teach for an organization called West Side Music Together, which is run, you know, primarily in the Vancouver area, but now Bowen has been added as one of their many locations. So that's another thing.
So that's already a lot. You're teaching very young, teeny ones and the parents on how to create music and have music in the home at a young age.
Yeah.
And you're also singing and doing Monday night general
Song circle.
Yeah, general song circle.
Yeah. And I also lead the women's threshold singing on Thursday nights, which is singing at the bedside of people who are in need of some kind of comfort and ease. It's kind of you know, music as medicine, basically.
Yes.
And that's
very healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much about receiving music and giving music as a gift.
That's right. And I also, just this past year, started teaching a cross-cultural musical class for toddlers where we sing songs in languages other than English.
Oh, how fun.
So we were singing this past session, we sang in Hungarian, Spanish, French, Squamish, what else did we have? Japanese, German, and some Trinidadian rhymes.
Did you create that little program yourself?
I was at the behest of a few of the parents. There's
nice.
a number of families of mixed heritage children on Bowen who are very interested in exploring their non-English heritages. And so it was, some of the parents just invited me to. It's just been an absolute delight.
Wow. And so I'm also aware that you're part of the community choir too.
Yes, I sing in the community choir.
Wow, so that's a lot of singing.
Yeah, I do a lot of singing. Nice. I also sing in an off-island choir called the City Soul Choir with Brian Tate.
Oh, wow. That's a well-known choir too.
Yes, that's a blast.
So that's a lot of service.
It's a lot of singing.
It's a lot of singing.
I am just so delighted and grateful that I get to have singing be such a prominent part of my life.
Yeah.
And now just recently, starting in the new year, Brian and I are going to be part of a group which is going to be leading kirtan at the Bowen Island Yoga.
Very nice.
On the last Sunday of the month, some Sunday of the month. I can't remember the dates, but
very nice.
Yeah.
So that's a totally different kind of singing, which is more inspirational and spiritual specifically, no?
Yes, it's devotional singing.
Devotional singing. Very nice.
Yeah.
So that's really, really clear that you're devoted to song and to singing and to making a community event of it in a variety of ways. Now that you kind of gave us a little bit of a personal synopsis of you and where you are now, can you tell us a bit about the more memorable moments that you've had in this way around singing? Is there anything that comes to mind where there's an event or an experience that you had around teaching, around receiving music in the community that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, I guess a couple of things recently come to mind, particularly with regard to the song circle, and that is the times when we've had our year end. Well, no, actually, one of them was a solstice event, which was the end of our fall session, where we went out to Xenia and used their little sanctuary there and lit the fire and the stove and went and walked around the labyrinth and then came back and sang songs and just that marvelous atmosphere of warmth and harmony and people just being so feeling so connected. I mean, physically it's a small space, so you literally are physically all connected, but also just this deep, deep, nourishing silence that happens at the end of a song. Songs to welcome back the light, songs to celebrate being together. And that those moments are just golden to me. Just that how lucky are we that we get to do this in this way, in this beautiful space. And then another wonderful memory, same place, Earth Day a few years ago, we went and sang for the trees.
Uh-huh.
And we all joined hands around the opa tree and sang. And it was all we could do to barely, stretch around, join hands around opa and sang songs for the trees.
Thank you. That's lovely. What would you say is the greatest challenge you face in terms of being able to continue to promote yourself or be Bowen? Is there any, as far as either the singing arts or, maybe, what are your challenges that you see as an artist?
There's a couple of things that come to mind. One of them we mentioned just in the conversation we had before we began the formal part of this interview is the transience of the population. Mm-hmm. Over the past, I would say, gosh, it's probably been 15 years anyway that Brian and I have been doing fairly regular. I didn't mention the drum circles that we had ongoing for a number of years. We did drum circles every month. Mm-hmm. And so many of those people that came every month regularly are no longer living here. Mm-hmm. And so that is actually an issue on Bowen is, when you're trying to create any kind of community event or, community, what's the word I'm looking
Stability?
for? Yeah, like
Awareness?
a community group that's going to last. I mean, it's even with our transition group, which isn't an arts group per se, but it's definitely very community focused. People come and go, right? So that's definitely a challenge. And the other challenge is just Bowen is such a small place. And it's very easy to saturate your audience here really quickly. So I find myself walking that line between wanting to be of service and to offer what it is that we have to offer to the community, but not wanting to have people feel pressured or imposed on, or like I have some expectation that they're going to do something regularly, because that's the other big challenge is people here are so busy. Yes. And it's such an expensive place to live, and families are just maxed out with the pressures of work and family life, and just try to keep keep it all together.
So we were talking specifically about your career and your career path, and you also talk about Bowen as being one of those very small and very dense places in a certain way, because it's easy to get to know and saturate your population. If I asked you to take a moment and think about Bowen as an artistic community, now you have a place in that artistic community and a very strong representation as a singer and as a teacher. What would be your perspective on how, as an artist, you communicate or connect with the other arts that are on Bowen? Do you have any thoughts on that? Anything that comes to mind in terms of whether it be things you'd like to see more, or help that you'd like to see more in that area of more interrelative work going on? Or is there any thoughts that you have around Bowen and the arts and your field of interest and its expansion or connection with other fields?
I love what they're doing at the gallery with this Eat, Drink, Paint, Eat, Drink, Write, and now we've actually got Eat, Drink, Sing coming up in January.
Very nice.
That was, the first time we've added that to their series, and I think that what that's doing. I haven't been to any of those events yet, but Brian and I are going to lead the Eat, Drink, Sing coming up in January.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what that is doing is it's an outreach program. It's reaching out quite deliberately to people who might not ever see themselves as a painter or a writer or a singer, and saying, just come and have fun, just relax and have some snacks and a drink, and let's just have some fun with this. Because if it's not fun, really, what's the point? Unless you're a professional artist or a professional writer, in which case it's a job and it's a discipline, and you make yourself sit up that blank canvas or that blank page every day. But that's not true for most of us. For most of us, it's a way of stress relief and connecting with some inner part of ourselves that we don't necessarily get to connect with on a daily basis. And it's got to be fun.
Yeah, that's a lovely one. So what would you say is Bone's greatest cultural asset? And when you're looking at the fact that something like the gallery can create a small event like that can actually create and harmonize, in the sense that take something that's really important but make it accessible to everybody, in a sense where what would you do you have any reflections on what would be our greatest cultural asset as far as a community, a small community that has such a strong representation culturally?
Well, I mean, I'm looking out your window at this extraordinarily beautiful view, even on a gray day. It's green and it's the ocean and the mountains, and I would say that one of our greatest cultural assets is just the deep peace that people can find here through living in such an extraordinarily physically beautiful and quiet and peaceful place, physically and naturally. The natural beauty of this place is just a huge, huge cultural asset. But that's kind of something that we don't have direct control over. On the more human level, I would say that the work that the Arts Council is doing is just, the Bowen Island Arts Council is such a treasure of an institution, and I'm not sure how much the average person appreciates how dedicated and really phenomenal the board and the staff of the Arts Council are, and what a terrific job they're doing. And I mean, I have worked for the Arts Council a long time ago myself, and I'm very aware of the challenges of small, the funding and the political balancing act that you have to do. I mean, I think that the Recreation Council, or whatever the official name for it is, Bowen Island Recreation, gets a fair bit of press, and has got a pretty high profile in the community. And I think the Arts Council does just every bit as much incredible work and making opportunities available for people, and I don't think they get anywhere near the airtime that the Recreation Commission gets. And that's probably true in most communities, because when people think of recreation, they think of sports and they think of fitness and all those other things. They don't think necessarily of the arts and how incredibly important the arts are in people's recreation lives.
So culturally, what do you think most differentiates us from Vancouver then?
Well, the fact that you can have, a friend and a neighbor like Sherry Ulrich, who's this world-renowned musician, who brings in her friends who are world-renowned musicians, and they go to the lovely little Tiernanog Theatre and put on these extraordinary concerts. I mean, that's not happening in Vancouver. You don't necessarily, if the person next door to you is a world famous artist, chances are you're not going to just have them over for tea or just bump into them in the grocery store. That's definitely the beauty and value of a small community, is that the artists that live amongst us, who are really gifts in the community, are your friends and neighbors.
Thank you. So you've been here a while. You've been here 22 years. What have you seen? What has changed the most since you've arrived?
Just in general?
Yeah, or in relation to the arts particularly. But we're talking about culture here. Have you seen the culture change? Have you seen it grow? Has it, and how, in what way?
Well, like I said, having the gallery and having the Arts Council have a home. You know, the Arts Council didn't have a physical home when we moved here. The gallery was started off as a brewery, actually. And so having the gallery, having an established base for the Arts Council has been a great asset. One thing that's changed that I don't see as a positive change is that there are many people in the arts community, in the theater community in particular, who've gotten really discouraged and just have literally given up, like Paul Hewson, you know, just like, okay, I'm done. I've given this my all for 20 years and I'm done trying to find a home for theater, trying to find a place, just some little building somewhere that we could have just a little performing arts space. It just doesn't seem like too much to ask, you know. We're the only Gulf Island, well, we're not technically a Gulf Island, but we're the only island in the chain of islands, the hundreds of little islands that dot this coast, that doesn't have any kind of a little community hall. You know, and that is something that, you know, it hasn't changed, but what has changed is that people have gotten tired. People who've been trying, some people for over 30 years, especially, there used to be this wonderfully vibrant little, you know, community theater, TOTI, Theater on the Isle, that would put on productions in, you know, the Legion and the Collins Hall and the old General Store, which used to be a vacant space before the library took it over. And they get so tired of having to haul around stages and set up and take down and set up and take down. And I haven't heard boo from TOTI for quite some time now. So anyway, that's not to be a bummer, but that is definitely something I've seen happen over the years, is this level of discouragement that has affected some people.
Is there a particular type of artistic or cultural activity that you would like to learn more about or see more on board?
Particular type of cultural activity. No, I think we are incredibly well represented as a small community.
Thank you. So, in my last question here is, do you have any other thoughts about Bowen's artistic or creative needs? Strengths, its opportunities, or development of creativity on Bowen?
Yeah, I guess one thing I didn't mention back when you were asking me just about what it is that I'm up to artistically is I didn't mention, for one thing, Brian and I have a name for our overall teaching practice that we call Rhythm Keepers. And our website is rhythmkeepers.ca. And we have started these weekends that we do monthly the goal is to create what we're calling a community of practice, where we're integrating all these various things that we're doing, which have both a musical and a rhythmic and a physical and a spiritual and a healing component to them. So I guess that's what I would, to answer your question, would be more synthesis and more integration and more recognition of how it is that the arts can play such an incredibly healing role. Because let's face it, we live in a world that needs a lot of healing right now. You know, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and all that it brought up, and just the ecological crises, they bring up a lot of feelings for people. People are walking around, many of us unconsciously, in a cloud of anxiety around what is going on in our world, in our you know, greater world. And again, we're a bit sheltered from that on Bowen, but we're not immune to it.
Yeah.
And so what I would like to see is more integration, more awareness of the phenomenally powerful role that all the arts can play in providing a space, a safe place for people to take those feelings of anxiety and whatever and come out of some experience feeling healed, soothed, calmed.
Finding some way of expression that's personal to them, but part of a community at the same time.
And just even validation, just that it can provide some sense of that there's something you can do. You know, singing together in a room.
Thank you.
Full of people can provide so much relief from that constant anxiety.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you. I've really enjoyed listening and hearing more about your life, but also about the contribution that you make to Bowen and the culture here. And I have a very strong feeling when you're talking about it of how much you give and the importance of it here, and that without you, there would be a very, very big loss to the passion, the clarity.